really excited to have Josh Magnuson joining us today. Hey, Josh, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in real estate investing?
Absolutely. So I'm a CRNA by trade, I guess, in education. I had actually found myself in a very an interesting environment at the University of Minnesota Medical Center, where a CRNA was kind of a celebrated advanced practice nurse. And we ended up moving our family to San Diego, California, and that environment just kind of changed. So I was really just kind of looking to switch up life and get off the hamster wheel. And it landed in my lap, actually, that my wife was aware of Dr. Sunny Smith, and she invited me to join one of her Zooms, actually featuring Leite and Dr. Sunny Smith. So after following that, I signed up for ZTF, and that was last year, January, and got through that course. It was, the usual hangups: what market, how big do you go? How do you even get into this game? Fortunately, however, once that course ended, I had a conversation with you, Kenji, about Empire Builders Pro, which was a new mastermind. Is that what you would call it? Mm-hmm. That you guys had created. So really, I guess my story is probably more a story of community and kind of the strength that you can pull from that. And so I am excited to share what I've accomplished actually in this year with you guys helping.
Awesome. So tell us, for real estate, what was so interesting about real estate to you that caused you to want to explore it more?
I think just the way that you guys had actually presented that message, like this is an avenue to change your life. And I really hadn't fully understood the power of passive income. And really, I mean, what we're all trying to do here is build wealth and build free time, really, and to not trade your time for money or have that direct transaction. It was key to that. And I think that real estate, as you guys teach, certainly presents that opportunity.
So tell us about how you chose your market and how you went about getting started and making the decisions, because a lot of people get caught in analysis paralysis. How did you avoid that?
Absolutely, they do. And I did myself. I spent I don't know, 3 months there. And I think that a lot of choosing a market, your limiting beliefs are very much tied into that. And I think that until you kind of understand that and are willing to believe that you can do this and it doesn't have to be in your backyard, it becomes a lot easier, right? And that's kind of, Phoenix actually was kind of that perfect happy medium for me living in San Diego, that it was close enough that if I had to get there, I could, but it was far enough away that it wouldn't occupy my every time or day. I didn't have to check up on the property all the time.
Had you been to Phoenix before?
Yeah, actually, I met my wife there. So it was kind of it was dear to my heart anyway, I suppose.
Well, I'm curious, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but how do you feel about market choice now? Like when you think about investing, let's say in Dallas or Atlanta, like what are your thoughts about it?
I'm willing to do it anywhere at any time now. I mean, really the backbone of the educational backbone that you guys provide within that course, Zero to Freedom, sets you up and gives you all the tools needed to do that. Again, once you recognize your limiting beliefs and address them, deal with them, this whole process becomes a lot easier. And at this moment, I mean, a deal is a deal. It doesn't matter where it is.
Well, you mentioned limiting beliefs, and I'm curious, thinking about your journey, right? Sounds like there were some limiting beliefs. How important has the mindset piece been for you in your journey?
It's changed everything. I mean, the way I think, the way I interact, the decisions I make, just providing clarity around, what you're doing and why is extremely powerful. And where focus goes, energy flows, right? So just kind of being able to shift that, acknowledge that, and get on that train makes all of it a lot easier.
So tell us about that first property that you bought.
Yeah. So The first property I purchased was in Phoenix, Arizona, as I said. It was a fourplex. Initially, like my agent presented me with the photos of it, which I'll show you here shortly, but it wasn't terribly impressive. It certainly wasn't, what I had envisioned as a home run. So again, just kind of mindset, right? Shifting the fact that this is not my home, but it is a safe home for others. And I think just understanding that and realizing, it doesn't have to be the finishes that you would want in your house, but people are happy to have them. So I think just kind of understanding that, stepping away that this is not your home, it's somebody else's. You're just the owner of it. So I think that's key.
So Josh, one thing we hear from people is they're completely new to real estate investing. They're going out, they're running lots of numbers, lots of cash and cash calculations, and they're not finding any great deals, and they don't know a whole lot about hidden values. So can you talk about when you were doing analysis of this property and how you were looking at it and what you saw that maybe previously other people had missed?
Absolutely. So really, I guess the first thing was just kind of getting an understanding of the city, right? Of Phoenix. What does a studio, what kind of rent does that command? How about a 1-bedroom, and a 2-bedroom? And the property we're reviewing here is a 4-unit or a fourplex with 2 1-bedrooms, 2 1, and then a studio in the back. And it became very obvious when this property had been presented to me that it was extremely under market rent. I think that actually one of the tenants had lived there for 14 years and still does live there. So, it just, the owner was not very aggressive or astute or concerned, I guess, with the revenue capture. So it became very obvious that there was, the easiest thing to do was to bring up the rent.
Were there any other things that interested you about this property versus other properties you had seen before?
I guess, what was kind of nice is, so just understanding that it was a cinder block construction, which in Phoenix, Arizona, there's a great deal of pests, termites, all of those types of things. And the cinder block is extremely resilient to that. So I could tell that the bones were good. Which
Awesome.
kind of drew me in.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they're completely new to real estate investing, think they're going to go out and they're going to do cash and cash calculations, and they're going to find something that's, 10 or 15% cash and cash return right out of the gate. And so it's always good for them to hear that you have to be able to recognize this hidden value, and you take properties and you turn them into something better. And sometimes it's just raising rents, but sometimes it's doing a rehab project as well.
Well, sometimes it's a good negotiation too, right?
That's right. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, what happened there?
Okay. So basically, when I was initially presented this property, it was on market for $585,000. And we were in the process of making an offer, locking up this deal. And I was talking to my agent about it, and she had said, Josh, I don't think there's much wiggle room on this. I think we're going to have to go in and ask. And ironically enough, the thing that rang most in my head was I could hear Lady saying, there's never a bad time for a haircut. And so we went in there and I said, hey, let's go 20 grand under what their list price is. And sure enough, the deal got locked up. And I really don't know if I hadn't said that, if I hadn't, said this is the direction I want to go. I think we might have left that money on the table. So I think as Lady, as you say, there's never a bad time for a haircut. So you just have to be looking for that.
Yeah. And the worst somebody's going to say is no. And this is a really key point I think people need to hear from you, which is you actually lead a lot of the thinking. You lead the thinking with your agent, you lead the thinking with your CPA, you lead the thinking with your property managers. A lot of people will tell you what's possible and what's not possible, but it's ultimately up to you as the investor to take responsibility and lead the ship.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that.
So how did you trust yourself? Because a lot of people would have backed down.
Yeah. So, you know what? I truly, again, my story is a story of community and the power of that. And I spent a lot of time kind of in the chat, just talking with other EV pros, trying to figure out, what is reasonable, what's worst case scenario if you come in 20 grand under, all of those things. And I just weighed out those decisions. And at the end of the day, as you said, it's not what's best for my agent or for anybody else for that matter. It's what's best for me and my family. And, you just have to, again, create that a little bit of separation between, this is not your home. This is somebody else's that's residing in it. And they're just paying you for that privilege, I guess.
Now, you touched on the value of community, but can you share a little bit more about what it is about the community that has really either inspired you or really motivated you or kept you going?
Without a doubt, the support. I mean, just to have other real estate investors that have walked your shoes, they've walked your path. And I was brand new to this. I had never purchased a home outside of primary residences, So this was something totally new. And I guess I just, with the support of the group, felt comfortable to take that leap.
And you did this during a time of high interest rates.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about that, because a lot of people have fear about high interest rates. And let's talk about your cash and cash calculations and how you thought through that.
Yeah. So I was, this was January of 2023. So it was kind of peak interest rate environment. There was a ton of uncertainty. Nobody knew what the rest of the 12 months were going to look like for 2023. So, I mean, that's certainly, it profoundly affects your numbers, right? Whatever your interest rate is has a profound effect on your return. But with that being said, there's deals in every market all the time. And you really just have to understand how to assess that, how to find those out or tease out that deal where others have left it on the table.
Mm-hmm. So how did this deal go? How was due diligence? What kind of things did you learn out of it, and any challenges you had?
Absolutely. So we locked up 20 grand under market, right? I did all of the inspections. So we did the home inspection, and then certainly I heard all the horror stories about scoping sewers. So that was obviously something I did. And thank goodness actually too, because that led to my second haircut, which we can talk about. But so really just kind of like, and I chose to go there for it. I think or I know that you don't have to do that, right? That's what this is, right? The limiting beliefs and separating yourself from that. But nonetheless, this was my first purchase. I felt compelled to do it. And I'm glad I did. I mean, I got to go there, actually walk the property, meet some of the tenants, and get a better understanding of the area, which is very valuable.
Okay. So what was your second haircut?
All right. So after due diligence, I noticed that there were some broken windows, just window panes, but nonetheless, they were old. And then also the sewer. The main line from the edge of the house to the street had been replaced, but all of the internal sewer needed to be descaled, repiped, all this kind of stuff. So what we ended up doing was, the sewer inspector noted this for us. I brought the video from the sewer inspector actually to like AZ Rooter, for example, a sewer repair company, and had them make bids based on this actual video. And I think that that's a very important thing too, is that video answered a lot of the questions, right? So the estimate that I was given was very accurate to what the cost of the repair was. So I eliminated a lot of that guesswork that I think otherwise gets lost. And it can be the difference in a deal, right? 16 grand to redo the sewer is pretty substantial. But nonetheless, I was able to, number one, get AZ Rooter to come in at a lower bid. So they ended up doing the project for 13 grand. And I had presented the buyers with that initial estimate of 16,500. And subsequently gave me an additional $16,500 haircut on the deal.
Yeah.
So
And that's great. I mean, that's something that we talk a lot about, because you never know what's going to happen, right? You may find once the plumber's in there that there may be some other issues, and therefore you want to make sure you give them a really good estimate of what it could be. But it sounds like in this situation, you were actually able to do it for less, and there were no complications or curveballs that caused the bid to be even higher. But so in that sense, you got a nice haircut and didn't cost you as much. So that's great.
absolutely.
So what happened once you purchased it?
So really, well, so throughout all of this process, right, you build your team. So your property manager, you know, you meet some contractors, repair guys, you get a firm understanding of like where you want that building to go, what you want it to look like or be like when all's said and done. And I don't know, it just really helped me to walk through that process and analyze that deal in a more concrete manner and less of the intangibles. I guess I felt I had a firm understanding of it.
And what did you do with property manager choice and your tenants?
So another thing, community, right? So I was actually able to reach out to Arizona investors within the semi-retired MD community, got several names, spoke to 3, and ended up with one that I really liked. So that's how I found her.
Amazing. And then any challenges that you've encountered?
I'm trying to think. I mean, it's been relatively smooth actually. Like I'm still waiting for something to present, and it certainly may. But at this moment, you know, again, I had tenants that had been there for 14 years. I mean, they were very committed to the area, to their community there. So it was just kind of, you know, just having a talk with them, or even I used an intermediary, my property manager, to communicate with them directly. But to just kind of get a better understanding of where they're at, kind of like what the rent thresholds could be, and work my way through that process, I guess, of getting to know them a little bit, albeit indirectly.
Awesome. Sounds like relatively smooth, no major issues, and that's really what you want, right? When you buy a property, you want things to go smoothly, so that's great. So we're going to look at this property in more detail in the before and after transformation. So so stay tuned for that. But I wanted to kind of shift now and talk about your EB Pro experience, and more specifically, I wanted to talk about your involvement in syndications. Can you talk a little bit about your experience there?
Yeah, so right when we had started EB Pro, through connections that you guys have, we got involved with a group that does that reconvert or converts struggling motels, hotels to large multifamily properties. So I got kind of exposed, or that was my initial exposure actually to syndications. Again, because of the group, we were presented with an opportunity to actually raise money for these projects. And as a result, we get GP shares within these buildings. So, you know, in just this 1 year with my fundraising and my involvement within the group, you know, I'm now a GP on 559 doors, you know, in 4 different buildings in 2 different states. So again, I guess power of community, right?
Very cool. Yeah, yeah. And so just for the audience, yeah, when you're a GP, you get part ownership of those properties for various activities, not just capital raising, but also playing an operational role where, you know, I understand that you're one of the co-leaders of one of the syndications, one of the raises.
Yep. You get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's kind of the key.
I love that. I love that.
So what kind of advice would you have for a completely new investor, you know, who's never considered real estate investing before, about getting started, about getting to where you are just a year later, not even?
Yeah. So I'm actually a coach in the upcoming ZTF course, which just opened up in January here. And I'm going to be asked, or I would imagine a lot of people will come for advice or a little bit of guidance. But I think the biggest thing is that, you know, this isn't rocket science. I mean, really, when you break it down, it's numbers. Do they work and do they not work? You know, is this project viable or not? And I think coming to that understanding, you know, just removing the emotional aspect of buying real estate and doing it, you know, methodically. And again, you know, it's either black or red, right? It's positive or negative. What's your cash flow? And it's that easy. You know, so it's all about just building your team. You know, obviously the education is paramount because a lot of people have made mistakes, right? And there's no reason to make the same ones. I mean, so find people that connect with people that are in the same kind of environment, looking for the same things, and grab strength from each other.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh, for sharing that journey with you and with us. And it's going to be really great to take a look at your property. So guys, make sure you go and check out the videos of Josh's first property, and we'll talk through all of the changes he made, and we'll look at the cash and cash return as well. Thank you, Josh.
Awesome. Thank you.